Welcome everyone to the 83rd Tesla Beat podcast. We are in only the second week of the year, and I can't tell you how crazy of a year it's been. I know Joe and I, we both live in California, and we all have friends, or not necessarily friends, but not necessarily family, but friends that are probably impacted. I know I have a couple of buddies who've been impacted by this, either through an evacuation. Not necessarily anyone lost homes, but it's very sad what's happening down there. So if you've been displaced, thoughts and prayers are going out to you. All the best. But hopefully these firefighters and our governor and our president, everyone can just get this fire contained, because it is horrific what is happening. I think the Pacific Palisades, 75% of the town is gone. Over 5,000 structures are gone. There's even arsonists now that they're arresting for starting fires, like the Kenneth one. Hans, were you going to say something? Okay. But yeah, so thoughts and prayers out to those that are being impacted by this. But yeah, well, let's get you caught up on the Tesla news. So let's jump in here. All right. Kikius Maximus. So we're showing the year to date. So only 10 days in the year, soft week over week. The previous number at the top was not updated, but long story short, we are essentially flat for the year so far. Let's just jump into, we'll come back to this depending on time. The most important thing was the brand new Tesla Model Y. I have a couple of videos we can share. But here's, let's show the one out of China that came out. Let's just play this. All right, and then here's just another quick view of the interior. There is powered rear seats, which is going to be a game changer as well. And then here, I think it's actually being shown going down. But we're going to get you caught up. But I think, and again, I have several spec sheets that we can kind of go through on like the biggest changes. But and maybe let me just showcase the sides, and then let's get a panelist overview on, before we get into the specs, just on the design. But here's the front. Then we got essentially the back, or side, kind of like back side profile.
Rear
and then
three-quarter.
Yeah. And then here's the side. But what were your guys' thoughts when you saw this past week?
Well, I'll start by saying the light bar was a bit of a surprise. The fact that they kept that front bra on the car so aggressively and so consistently, and there were no spy shots of the front, told me that we could expect a light bar, but I was still convinced it wasn't going to happen. Do I like it? Yes, but I like the old one too. Some people love it. I've seen some people who haven't warmed up to it yet. But the reality is the Model Y is already the least sexy car that Tesla makes, and it's fine. I don't look at my car from the outside of it when I'm in it. I care how it drives. And frankly, I do like it. So, I think it'll be a good seller. People have said, "Oh, it looks too much like a lot of the Chinese cars." Yeah, all cars look the same. We get it. There are not many exceptions to it, but it's I like it.
I will go next, I guess. So I like it because, like Brian was saying, a lot of people complained and they probably didn't like it. But the truth of the matter is I can tell them apart now, and I like that, because like from a distance, like you could not tell a Model 3 and a Model Y apart for nothing. But now you got a pretty good distinction on which is which. I don't really care about the light bar. I think it's cool that they added it. I think I think everything is having a light bar. We were talking about that yesterday here at CES, looking at all these vehicles like the Liado and like all these. Everybody has light bars going across the front, and it's so funny in 2019 when Tesla announced that Cybertruck. I mean, this is like before the release of the Rivian and stuff, and so we didn't know like what was going to happen. But now it's like, guess what? Everybody wants light bars across the front. I think it's cool. I noticed in some spy shots of it, like it looks like it doesn't have the logo, and some it does. But I'd be cool if they didn't put the logo. I think it's distinctive enough that I think it's sexy now that you can tell it's still a Tesla.
Hans, you want to give your POV?
Yeah. I mean, I think that overall it doesn't look, a ton different. It's not going to make any difference in sales volumes. I think the big things are, what's the performance? What's it like to drive? What's the value that you're getting for your money? And then, as an investor, okay, can they actually bring cost of goods sold down on this vehicle and make better margins as they sell these? I do appreciate the fact that they're using that design language from the Cybertruck and kind of infusing it in more of the lineup. And that's what that, light bar says to me is definitely, this is a Cybertruck inspired design element that we're, putting here into the Model Y. I feel like I like both of them just fine. I think I would echo what Brian said. Like the Model Y is an okay looking car. It's not the most beautiful car that Tesla makes by any stretch of the imagination. And I don't think this makes it any better or any worse for me than the previous model. And I think that I am excited though about increases in, the range and some of the other things about this refresh that aren't necessarily the design elements that we'll get into.
Yeah, I think for me, well, so first off, there was, I think because the announcement came at least on the West Coast, like pretty much like last night, right? I think it was like 7, 8 o'clock. Maybe sooner, maybe 5 or 6. But the whole day, unfortunately, there was like a leak that came out, and I didn't touch it just because I don't want to support. But at least when I saw it, I think it definitely looked different just because the light bar and it looked like a little bit more compact. But when I look at it, and I think I think initially, I'll be honest, I kind of had to pause a little bit. It wasn't like quite like the Cybertruck pause, but it definitely is different. But I think the good thing is that with this, this really has all of the big like it's probably not only the product updates, but like the interior updates, but the front facing camera. Again, we'll get into some of that stuff. I do like the backlight bar. But either way, yeah, like for me, it's like, this is the best selling car in the world right now. It needed a facelift, especially because the Model 3 had gone before it. And so I think that this is it's I guess I kind of feel somewhat indifferent, but I think that all of these changes are good. If I had an early Model Y for this, would I go upgrade? I think that the upgrades are enough if you can make the adjustment, just because, again, especially that back monitor for the kids. And then I think that some of the front facing camera, the rear powered seats, there's a lot of things like that in the redesign would make it worth the jump, especially like, for example, the original 2018 Model 3 versus the one today, they're night and day. They're different cars. And so if this is the same quality, which I know it will be, the original Y versus this one, it's going to be the quality of the build is going to be exceptional. So that's probably the biggest things that I look at. Hans, were you going to say something?
Yeah, just to add one more thing, when the Cybertruck came out, the way that it looks in pictures and the way that it looks in person are radically different. And I am excited to see the new refresh Model Y in person, because I do expect that actually to probably pop more in person than it does, especially in, when we saw the leaked pictures and, it's a grainy photo and it's in the snow and it's far away. It's like, I don't know if this car looks good or not, but then you see, the high res, more professionally done photography, and it already looks much better. And I think then when you see it in person, that it will probably be even better than that.
Yeah, Hollywood style glamour shots make an okay looking car look better, and I think this is a good looking car that looks definitely better with a professional photographer. Yeah, when I saw those spy shots, I just thought they were AI, and I don't report single source. I did. I thought they were AI, and I don't support report single source rumors. And this was a unsupported rumor at the time, so I'm not going to touch it. But yeah, it was turned out to be true. I hope the correct people are duly punished for their insubordination.
Yeah. One, going into the key differences. So obviously the most important thing is that now you can actually tell the difference between the 3 and the Y. Okay, we know that. So now you don't need to squint your eyes. It's like, is that I think it's a little bit bigger, 10% bigger, it's a little bit higher. But I think some of the big call outs, and again, we have, some little more details on like the actual like front differences, interior differences, and then back differences. But you have a redesign with the headlight and tail light, new suspension and wheels, power folding second row seats, which I called out earlier. Obviously, the larger 15.4 center display, an 8-inch rear display, 250 kilowatts for supercharging. I thought that was interesting. Do we know, is the Model 3 the same? It's like max charging 250.
I believe so. Yeah.
Okay. And then it looks like there is a price increase by about $1,800.
So I can address that real quick because that's in Australia. And what they've done is it's not actually a price increase. What they did is they gave you free choice of paint, free 20-inch wheels instead of the 19s, a little emblem, some extra goodies. And it looks like they may have also included acceleration boost. So it
Wow.
so you actually are, it's
They just
maybe
raised
even a
the
little
base
cheaper.
model.
They just raised the base model. Thank you, Hans.
Yeah.
But the boost is that's pretty cool.
Well, we figure it must be because that is the exact spec you would expect from an acceleration boost on
Right.
the long range. The fact that the standard range, or the, I guess, rear wheel drive model, is also quite a bit quicker is lovely. You love to see it.
Well, I did see some commentary from AJ, who was looking at the top speed, and he thought that the increased acceleration might actually just be a change in the gearing of the motors because the top speed was lower. And so it could be that this is actually legitimately just the base model, and that there will still be an acceleration boost on top of that, which is even more spicy, which we'll have to wait and see. I do think that if what we're doing right now is we're kind of raising that base model, that once they do reach full volume on the refresh out of Shanghai, that you might see some of those lower trims actually come back onto the website and the price come down a little bit. This is probably a way to manage their cost of goods sold and the extra capex as they're doing this changeover and they're trying to ramp back up to full speed, just to make it a little bit better for the company as they spend that extra money.
I did see that video from AJ this morning, and it is a fantastic video. He goes through it by the different design elements and what it means to the cost of manufacturing. There were some conclusions he reached that I didn't share, but that's to be expected. But no, it is, yeah, it could absolutely be the slightly different gearing that gets at the extra speed. And yeah, like you said, we'll find out soon enough.
We always do. Joe, were you going to say something?
I was just thinking that the redesign helped with the that 3% or so efficiency that they got, because the front end is a little bit different in the way it comes across. The back end looks, I mean, that nose looks a little pointier, I mean, of course, but I thought that was a cool element, that 3%.
Also range increase. Again, this could vary based on the geography, just based on the metrics, but I think I heard 3%, and it looks like this is like 4.5 to 7. So again, there was a range increase, I think, is the big takeaway. Acceleration boost, top speed as well increased. The length increased by about almost 2 inches, the width like 1 millimeter, and then identical height. So definitely some changes there. Here's a quick breakdown. I don't know if we can see this. It's probably not worth it, but I think I'm just gonna give some quick highlights on the front differences here real quick. Just go here. So there's obviously in the front now you actually have a drain, so that's nice. There's a newly designed through light. There's an optional new glacier blue paint. Again, we don't know if that's going to be offered in the US. I personally like it. I think it's really slick. And more importantly, it kind of gives a lot of the Tesla face colors a new lift, because as we know, a lot of people, whenever there's that free color, they select that one. We know that there's a new front bumper camera, brand new headlights, new front air duct, and new rims as well. One question I have, okay, so Tesla has the Model Y has a front-facing camera. What is going to happen with the 3, the S, and the X, if anything?
I don't know. I don't think you're going to go back and retrofit them. The computer would support it, but if the wiring's not there, that's a whole lot of surgery to add them. They may just add them later if it's determined that they're necessary. But I think Tesla knows what's necessary, and if they're adding them, I think they're of the opinion that it adds a substantial amount of safety. I would believe, especially when you're waking up and starting to drive. You and I are able to look in front of our car before we get in it. If the car isn't in sentry mode, it doesn't necessarily know if a cat is laying down in front of it.
Yeah, so I was on a Spaces last night, and someone asked this question, and Omar commented that retrofits are something that people kind of want, right? But realistically, once you start getting into the millions of vehicles that Tesla's making,
Yeah, it gets a bit unruly in that way if you're trying to retrofit all of those. Joe's frozen. We know where he was going with it, but yeah, I would agree with all that. I don't think a retrofit is likely because it's too labor intensive, too cost intensive. They would just move forward.
yep.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, my thought is that obviously we all know that whatever typically is like the latest vehicle ends up being, the most advanced. I do think though, when you are paying for like an S and X, that's going to be a legitimate question, right? Is because it's the higher end. But at the same time, I don't know at what point can they make that adjustment. And the one thing is that I will say is that when you think of like the robotaxi, or more importantly, like FSD, whether it's V13, but now you have, for the past 3 or 4 years, you've been selling this Model Y, which is now the best selling car in the world. Obviously there's multiple variations now of that they have to solve for, because now you also have this front facing camera on the new Model Y. So each camera potentially could add a different dynamic, but because even the Cybertruck has one, and thankfully they have data on that. So they have some type of structure of how to have your car navigate with the aspect of the front facing camera. But I do know that at least when we talk to the Cybercab engineers, and I know, Brian, you probably could chime in on this too, but it's more of like when they're thinking of like FSD, and they're really trying to streamline the camera access, because I don't think the Cybercab didn't have one, right? I don't think there was a front-facing camera. Was there?
I think there was, but what they told me was that they weren't sure it was going to remain.
I would assume, I would assume now with the Model Y having it, I would assume it's going to, because they're gonna, unless they just want to use the 3 and the Y as the main one, right? So the other cool thing that they had was the launch series. So I don't know if this is APAC specific or if this is going to be here. I mean, to be honest, even when I look at that badging, I get, I think of like the Lunar New Year, and just kind of potentially something more APAC specific. So I don't know if this is going to come to the US, but we'll see. sorry.
I
Go
I
ahead.
do have some insight on that.
Yeah.
Our friends at Joa, the accessory company, have ordered one in Taiwan. And Taiwan Model Ys ship from the US. They do not ship from China. The
Wow.
one that they ordered
Wow.
and I think they said May is their expected delivery, is coming from the US, and it is a launch edition. So that would suggest to me that they will do launch edition from all the factories that are making it for as long as they can keep squeezing those extra couple $1,000s out. And so far, we've confirmed China, Australia, New Zealand, Singapore, Japan, Taiwan, and that's it. I hope America, the United States of, is on that list, but we shall see.
Well, if they're making them here and then shipping them to Taiwan, you would think that we would get
Them a month
some.
or two before, for sure.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see what happens.
Yep. Some of the other things that so bear with me. I was scrounging around this morning, so sorry for the messy slide. But here's the interior along with Nvidia, which we're gonna get into. But I just wanted to call out the key changes on the interior. Just so that you guys are all aware. New armrest, ventilated front seats. It looks like the technical textile material decorative panels is there. There's multicolor surround atmosphere light strip, silver coated insulating glass, and then it looks like the speakers. They have 9 speakers, including a subwoofer. There is a rear side electric adjustment, and then there is an electric adjustment switch. So yeah, those are all like the main things, but I think a lot of really, really cool updates. Again, I don't think we watched the full of this, but yeah, you can really see that, the interior, they definitely have given it a facelift. Some of the things might be subtle, but I think, I just think of because I've been in several Model 3s, the new ones, and this I get that sense and that vibe of this. But again, I go back to the build quality of the new 3 was just so much different and better made than the first one. So I'm personally really excited on that.
Worth pointing out, the 9 speakers is for the rear wheel drive, and the long range and performance would have 16 speakers, which I'm pretty sure means 2 subwoofers for those models. And yeah, the interior, the other thing that wasn't mentioned is the rear seats are now power folding. So if you don't want to climb back there and remember how to do it, you just have a button you can push to fold up and down the seats. And the real big thing isn't what we can see. It was like John was just saying, it's what you feel when you drive it. If you've ever driven an old Model 3 versus a Highland, you know it's a very different car. It feels so much more refined. It feels tighter. It's quieter. It's smoother. It takes speed bumps softer than a Model Y. If you take that example and say that this is what the new Model Y will be, I don't care what it looks like. It's a better car.
Yeah, just
I
to
think
expand on that a little bit. Sorry, Joe. We've seen incredible reviews from people, like Kyle Connor from Out of Spec Reviews. Like, he just absolutely raved over the Highland refresh compared to the previous model. But it's not just people who are EV enthusiasts. This also extended to when Jason Camisa reviewed the Model 3 performance, and he compared it to the BMW that was literally twice the price. He's like, well, maybe technically the BMW is like a little bit better, but like it literally costs twice the price of this Model 3 Performance. And, for the price of that, you could buy the Model 3 Performance and a super fun Mazda Miata to drive, or, several other very light, very responsive, very fun cars to drive. And so this is, what we are expecting for this Juniper refresh, is that interior feel, the driving dynamics, its ability to handle and corner but also then the ride, like for you to get a car that feels better on a track at the same time that it feels better just doing all your daily driver stuff. That is a very incredible technical achievement by the Tesla engineering team, for the Model 3 Highland refresh, and that's what we're expecting.
Yeah, I think it's I think all of those call outs are really good and important.
I say exactly
And,
that. I was going to say,
all right, Frozen Joe, I guess.
no, yeah, no, that's fine.
Did you want to try again?
No, I was going to say exactly what he said. Just he took that out of my mouth. Those were the exact same words. I was going to say all of those things because I'm just that poignant.
So I think we'll loop potentially back to so any kind of like on design specs, anything else kind of related to the Model Y. Otherwise, we can get into the Nvidia and then some other Tesla news. But was there any like I mean, I guess the thing is that like when you think of this year and then also how we close out the last year, um, and we'll see what ends up happening. But I mean, how are you guys feeling about this year? Like, do you think that this is like, are you seeing, and it's kind of near term, but like, are you seeing a lot of orders coming through? What is your kind of like vibe on the market right now?
So I'll say real quick in conclusion on the Model Y that this is going to sell like hotcakes. There's pent up demand for it. It is not going to be as maybe big of a shift as we noticed with the Highland Model 3 because the Model Y is newer and a more updated vehicle, but it will bring it up to that level for sure. What do I think 2025 is going to be? Well, we know that there was excess capacity at Giga Texas and at Giga Berlin. This gives an opportunity to better utilize that capacity. I think there will be strong demand for this. It's already the best-selling car in the world 2 years running. This may be a gap year because it's gonna have some downtime for retooling, but it may not be a gap year. It may be that when they ramp back up, they will never have to slow down. I'm quite encouraged. I'm not seeing orders. I don't see orders, but yeah, I'd be curious to hear thoughts from the rest of the panel.
Yeah, I'll add just one more reinforcement to what Brian said on the Model Y point. I especially expect this to do very well in the Chinese market, which is, the number one market in overall size in the world. That Chinese consumers love shiny new things. This is definitely a shiny new thing. And so if you combine the shiny new with the overall just improved value for money that you get from this new Model Y, it's going to do very, very well globally, but especially in the Chinese market. And then doing very well in the Chinese market will definitely be very beneficial to the company as a whole, because when they can sell those at higher levels right there from out of Shanghai, that's going to improve the overall margin profile. And then when we look at 2025, if we take that into account, plus Elon Musk said new models in Q1 of 2025, I think that we will see those coming out of Giga Texas specifically, which was one of the factories that Brian mentioned that we have extra capacity in. And so while I do think that, sales of the S3, X, and Y vehicles specifically will probably be, roughly on par with what we saw in 2024, I do expect significant sales growth for Cybertruck and then whatever bonus vehicles we get here in the next few months. And when you factor all of that in, I do think that 2025 is going to be at least marginal growth over 2024. And then that could be significantly more than marginal growth if we really see, a very attractive new offer from the company with a new vehicle segment.
Yeah, I know we all know that they've been working on the next gen platform. We saw it with the Cybercab, but we'll see what else is potentially paired and made with the Cybercab if they're going to be making something that is really going to be great for, like, let's say the European and and Chinese markets. And who knows, maybe a different. So yeah, we'll just see. We'll just see. Like, I'm not going to speculate, but we know that more is coming. It's just a matter of what. And I do think it's going to be something that is going to drive volume. Is going to be the goal. So yeah, it's exciting stuff. Joe, did you want to give thoughts? I know the internet's been a little bit spotty.
Yeah, internet's been spotty. I would just say that I'm really looking forward to it. I was really kind of hoping that they would do a global launch, like instead of like how they're spacing it out, so that you wouldn't have the effect that you had with the Model 3. But I think they'll probably move a little bit quicker and it won't take as long. Like I think we had like 6 months or something like that or more, but hopefully they'll move a lot quicker with this. And I'm interested to see how the tooling is going to ramp up, because these delivery dates for May don't seem that far away. And it's like, man, they must have not had to change much, or the tooling must have been pretty insignificant for them to be able to make that quick turnaround, because we haven't seen really any shutdowns besides the holiday that was like kind of quick.
AJ's video covered some speculation of his that is well qualified. He's a very sharp guy. He's been right about a lot more things than most people. His belief is that very little of the car has actually changed. Not, the suspension surely is upgraded. The cabin is a little quieter, all that, the things we can see, but that it is not a radically different vehicle, that everything from the occupant home in terms of the frame, the cabin area is all the same, which would limit the amount of retooling there is. Now, you raised a question about, will this have an Osborne effect where people will stop buying the old one to buy the new one? And I would say that only applies to people like us. If I need a Toyota Camry and I need to buy one, am I going to wait 3 months? I know there's going to be a new Camry out in 3 months, and it's going to be the all new whatever model year with big changes over the one that's out today. Most people don't understand how radically different a generation of a Tesla vehicle can be from the current one. They do a test drive, they love it, they buy it. And we didn't see a huge fall off in Model 3 sales when everyone knew that the Highland was coming in a matter of months. So I'm not as concerned about that. I don't think most buyers care.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think, there's going to be, I think Joe's always been the one to bring me down to earth, because I think, we live and breathe this stuff. We're talking about Tesla a lot throughout the week. And so the average buyer is not going to know the differences, or really, they may not even know about the announcement unless they're literally at the Tesla and they have a new one on display. But we'll see when the announcement for the US and Europe comes. I think it should come pretty quickly, because, why delay this? Especially, more importantly, what are they still going to be producing the current Model Ys at capacity? And then also too, I will say, once the new one is displayed, you're going to find this actually could be a great time to get into a new vehicle, because if the current price for the latest one is $42,000, whatever it is, they're going to be heavily discounting these other ones that are going to be, they're going to be throwing out a lot of referrals and discounts. So could be a good time to actually get into one better than this past quarter, because the next quarter is always the best quarter sometimes to get the best deals, right? All right, so let's step into this, and then we'll swing back to some Tesla news depending on time. But I think Nvidia had a big announcement this past week at CES, essentially announcing new graphics cards, and really just like, they had a bunch of announcement, like a personal computer that's going to be like 10 times, 1,000 times better than the current most computers that you have. But I'll pass it over to Brian to kind of take us through a quick deep dive and a high level on this. But I think that I'm going to steal his example. Well, actually, I'll pass it to him so he can use the wording.
So Nvidia had some very exciting news this week, you guys. This changes everything. They've got an AI chip designed specifically for automotive use, for FSD compute and training. They've got FSD computers for the servers back at the mothership, where you can then send your data if you are a manufacturer for training. You have all the things you need to build your own FSD car. What you don't have is FSD. You do not have autonomy. It is a gold rush, and everyone recognizes it, and Nvidia is the one selling the pickaxes and shovels. We don't actually have gold here. That's not what we do, but man, are we making a fortune selling the supplies. So this is an opportunity for companies. Toyota's already jumped on board. They want to have a taste of this. We want something, and we're not going to partner with that gosh darn Tesla. So while Tesla's putting $1,000 of compute in every car, Toyota is going to put $3,000 of compute, because Nvidia needs their margins, baby, and they've got a great chip that stands the possibility of solving it someday. So now all Toyota has to do is decide, are we going to put it in the whole fleet? Because that'll bankrupt us. We don't have $3,000 of margin across the entire fleet. That's ridiculous. We couldn't. No, we'll only put it in like the Lexuses and the top models of the RAV4 and the Camry. And as a result, we're going to get incomplete data that's weirdly skewed to richer buyers and richer neighborhoods. And maybe by 2030, when this is actually rolling out, we will start to have enough data. Meanwhile, Nvidia's earnings are through the roof. So it's very exciting times, you guys.
Well, and then, on top of that, Nvidia will help sell you special software to convert your meager amounts of training data into more training data that still doesn't accurately reflect real world driving enough for you to actually train your functional FSD.
No, but it kind of does. It kind of does. And isn't kind of just as good as...
Yes. Yeah. It gets you closer. You don't get there, but you do get closer.
What they've built is a massive world in Minecraft for you to train your vehicles.
Yeah, it's pretty...
Yeah, I
Go ahead, Joe.
Go ahead. Oh, yeah, I was just going to say it's sadly hilarious how far these companies will go to just not license FSD from Tesla. Like holy cow, man. Like, let me just dig my own grave real quick, because I just don't want to ride in a boat that is saving everyone. Unbelievable.
Nvidia famously, they said, look, we've got 20 million hours of video training of driving. And it's like, well, so this isn't like vehicles data. This is just videos of driving. This is like they scraped YouTube. 20 million hours. Tesla's got 7 million cars out there. They could gather that much data in like 2 days if they needed to, but they don't need to. All they need now are the edge cases, and they're only collecting those. Toyota will have to start from square one. Are they really going to start pulling gigs and gigs of footage from all these cars over what, 4G? Or are they going to demand the customers give access to their Wi-Fi so they can hit their data caps instantly? And then what do you do with it? Once you've transmitted it back to the mothership, you don't have a server farm yet. You're going to need to build one with Nvidia chips and then buy the software Hans mentioned. Guys, what are you doing?
Well, and the one thing that Nvidia is never going to be able to sell any of these companies is the AI engineers that it takes to actually use all these picks and shovels to build an FSD that actually works.
Knowing legacy, I was knowing legacy auto, and I think there's been several people who have said that 2025 will again be another big year of awakening. I mean, they're going through it right now with, still not making profitable EVs and stuff. But at what point, what will it take for these companies to essentially buy Tesla software? I mean, I think at this point, it might seem like it's pretty much a layup that it's just about, from maybe their perspective, it's just about the amount of years that they want to delay this and die more. Or is this going to be about, some other thing that is it just going to take, I'm making this up, Ford coming out and saying, hey, we're doing this. And then is it just a domino effect at that point? Because as you were saying, like, if you think of the cars that these companies are building, if they're not building it to put in, let's say, the Tesla software, because the Tesla software, sure, it might be able to adapt, but I think there's going to be certain requirements. Hey, you need the angle, you need this amount of cameras, like, because I think that's going to be how the system is, and it can probably change if the configuration is different. I don't doubt that, but the problem is when you put the software in, let's say a Ford, like, if there's an accident, is it Ford's fault or is it Tesla's fault? So there's just going to be like a lot of that happening, that there's going to probably need to be strict guidelines on saying, if you want the software running, you need XYZ.
So I'll point out real quick that not everyone buys FSD. The take rate, depending on the market, is anywhere from 0 to 20%. So Toyota and Ford aren't looking at losing 100% of their market. They're looking at losing 0 to 20% of their market. That's an acceptable risk when the alternative is spending $20 billion and it not working, or $100 billion and it not working. The Volkswagen Carry-Ad program proved that there is no amount of cash that will automatically fix a problem. They famously hired 10,000 engineers to build their car's OS. That turned out to be the wrong number. That's akin to trying to mend an egg using all the king's horses and all the king's men. It's the wrong tool for the job. So you can't brute force your way through a solution like that. And I think what'll need to happen is, as soon as Tesla is unsupervised, then it is hopefully not too late to get on board. Hopefully Tesla will still have the door open for others at that point. But to be determined.
You know what I'll say is, looking at what's happened with Tesla from the beginning, right? Like, the Roadster was one thing, but you come out with the Model S and it's like, car of the year and everything like that. At that point in 2014, even, you gave it 2 years, it's still selling like gangbusters. They've announced the Model X. They have a decade of trying to get in, and they proved not to do it. So I don't see them making a move on this. It took them a really long time to even adopt NACS. So I feel really bad for Legacy Auto and how they view Tesla, when clearly Tesla's making intelligent moves, and they're just, the hubris just will not allow them to make the change. And it's really kind of sad. I talked to a guy at CES that he had worked with Vanderhall, and he had battery management system in that vehicle, and he was saying how he had worked with a few other OEMs, and because what they had was like proprietary, was like really good, right? And it works really good in the Vanderhall Jeeps and stuff like that. But he was having a hard time getting the OEMs to use the software that they had engineered that works great for what applications that they would need it for, and they were just having a hard time writing the ship. And so it's really sad, but I just do not see them adopting the FSD, even though they should. It's going to be really, it will take, like what John said, it will take somebody like Ford doing it, and then everybody being like, okay, I guess it's okay to do it. But I don't even know if Ford will do it.
Yeah. I think, go ahead, Hans.
I don't know that a legacy OEM is going to try. I think, like you said, Ford would be the one where maybe we've heard Jim Farley talk a lot about how he wants to actually get Blue Cruise to work. He wants Ford to provide that software because he sees the value that is in it. And so I think they're going to pursue that for quite a while. And whether or not they will incorporate, using Nvidia's tools to do that, we'll have to wait and see. But even if they do, I don't expect that necessarily to work for any of the legacies. Just like Brian said, we've seen when legacy car companies try to get into software, we don't have one single positive example of success. Not one. Like, the best software in all legacy automotive cars is Apple CarPlay, which is not developed by any of the legacy OEMs. They're just terrible at software, and there's really no two ways about it. But that doesn't mean that there won't be someone else out there who does actually use whatever tools at their disposal, whether it's Nvidia hardware, software, and tools, or whether it's roll your own stuff, to try and provide an alternative to FSD. And so I do expect competition to come in to the space. I think the market is so large, the TAM is so big, the potential earnings are so insane. And now, like, when Elon is saying it, when Jensen is saying it, then people are taking notice at another level. When Jensen actually reorganizes and reconfigures his company to be able to provide these tools to the world, whether it's legacy auto or not, then that market is something that other people are taking seriously and other people are going to take advantage of. So I am interested and hopeful to see more people make much better progress, much more rapid progress on this, because I think this technology is ultimately good for the world. And huge hats off to Jensen for, being able to provide the software and the services that he is providing to other people, because, it's like Tesla's incredible at building these tools internally and then using them to create an incredible product. But if you've ever tried to take a tool that you build for yourself internally and then make that a product that you can sell to other people and other people can use, well, that's a really, really hard process. And the fact that Jensen has done that is good for the world. It is hard. Like, it is a different set of expertise than what Tesla is built for. And I have huge respect for him in what they have accomplished and what they are accomplishing there. And I think they deserve to make a lot of money, giving people who otherwise wouldn't have a chance at least a shot at solving autonomy, whether they're able to or not. And I think this is an incredible area of growth for Nvidia as well.
That's actually a really good point. When I was working at the bank, I had this Excel spreadsheet tool that I'd built that could do everything that you wished the computer could do for itself. And I shared it with a couple of coworkers. And next thing I knew, there were all kinds of strangers throughout the bank contacting me because the tool had broken. And it's because it was never designed to be a widespread used tool. It was, if you don't know how to use it, you're going to break it. I didn't think to lock down all the things that you could break, but I had to keep redistributing it until management found out, and then I had to keep redistributing it much quieter.
You know what? It's funny we have this conversation, because looking at who could potentially help out the OEMs, it looks like Mobileye has probably like the best opportunity to be like a player that come in and be like, hey, we have a solution for you guys. You don't like them? Like us. We're okay. So I imagine that's probably something on the back end that people are looking at.
First, it has to work, and I'm awaiting evidence of Mobileye's. There's that funny chart we've seen that was made by some clown that put Mobileye way at the top. It's a leader, it's bleeding edge. And at the time, I think Mobileye was still using 1 or 2 cameras. I thought, boy, that's not going to work.
Yeah. Well, we know, Brian, that OEMs are not smart. They just like to do anything other than Tesla. So
well, they like easy. And they're used to dealing with software with outside suppliers and letting the suppliers build all the things. It's so easy. When they first started having to put software into cars, they're like, oh man, we need software to run the blinker or the seats. And the seat manufacturer said, we'll just take care of it for you. And next thing you know, as Jim Farley explained in June of 23 on a Fully Charged podcast, Ford has 150 software providers, and Ford isn't allowed to touch the software. They can't alter it to fix it. They have to reach out to the supplier every time. And what the supplier is willing to do is often quite limited. And if you bring in Tesla to bring in their FSD on top of it, now you've got 151 suppliers of software, and it's just gotten worse. So the real trick with licensing FSD is that you couldn't just license the software and just give them the chips. It's got to be integrated. It goes all the way to the bone. This is a nervous system level product, and it would need to be integrated all the way down.
Yeah, the fact that Hans brought that up, that there's that stat that no OEM has had a software solution that works, is a crazy stat when you look at the over 100 years that they've been in business. But it was all mechanical before the last few decades when it really started to get into the software element. So it's just wild.
Well, and the scary thing for these OEMs, to Brian's last point, is that buying Nvidia's tools doesn't solve that problem of getting you all the way down into the nitty-gritty of controlling every single electronic component in your car with one unified stack. And that's the reason they haven't ever been able to produce good software in the past, and that's probably going to be the reason they continue to also fail.
Yeah, Nvidia's chip would need to be able to speak the language of 500 different blinkers just to operate. Forget the cameras and sensors. It is absolutely every last component.
Yeah, the thing that I keep thinking of was it the Fully Charged podcast with Jim Farley, where he essentially, taught, the quick context is he had said that imagine, you have 5 different suppliers writing in 500 different codes. I'm kind of elaborating here. I'm kind of not giving exact words verbatim, but long story short, they've outsourced them. They're all writing in their own different languages, and then you have to then merge them together. So now you literally have this, 500 companies speaking 500 different languages, trying to get them all to communicate. And then now you want to put in the most technology advanced type software on top of, the cameras and everything else. So I guess what I'm saying is, if I'm an OEM, I'm going to be hitting up Tesla, seeing if we can do this really under the table and seeing how do I get there? What's the path potentially to get with this? Because I think that there will be, as the panel has been saying, that I think that there's going to be testing that needs to happen, right? So even if you figure out all the nooks and the crannies, if you have a Mustang Mach-E, you need to be able to still have that Mach-E be able to make sure that it's working properly. I mean, it's not necessarily that they're going to necessarily need more training data, depending on if it's vastly different, but you will need to make sure that it can operate without any issues, and so I just think that that's a big uphill battle. And actually this is a perfect discussion for this. It's not something I never really laid out, what would these companies have to do to make this work. Brian, were you going to say something?
Well, I was going to say real quick that backroom deals is where you'd have to get this done, NDAs and all that type of stuff, because we've seen Tesla be able to work these backroom deals before with the superchargers. There's that company that has superchargers and their name is on it, but we know that they're freaking V3s for Tesla, and that's because we know the Tesla, but not everybody knows that. So they think, oh, it's just that company that just makes those cabinets. But I think a backroom deal is where it's at. Hopefully they make the call. I can't imagine Mary Barr making that call. She didn't really want to get on the spaces that Elon had her jump on when they had to do that announcement. She was very reluctant. She just sounded like, okay, I'm doing this because he controls me and we're doing it. Yay.
Sorry, I think we have about 5 minutes. I just wanted to run through a couple of quick headliners. And maybe we can even finish with one that I had at the very beginning. But X Energy or Tesla Energy is doing paid advertising on X again. Shout out to Sawyer for bringing this news. This I thought was really interesting, and it just potentially shows I mean, again, I don't know what Ford's thinking, but this is a big deal. I mean, now the Ford Mustang the Mach-E is outselling the gas version. So I think this is potentially a turning point for them. And then I think when I think of the Tesla Energy, let's go back to this one. Shout out to Ray, but long story short, it looks like the Megapack factory is getting near close to being done, and they're working on the groundbreaking ceremony. But what I wanted to say, it looks like they already have lined up their first customer and delivery. So, this is, as we would all say, Tesla Energy is kind of the sleeping giant here. So, yeah, here's some other stuff. Go ahead, Brian.
That plant has been commissioned. It is complete. Production is, as far as we can tell, if not underway, it will be within a week or two. It was 7 months from groundbreaking to completion, which is what happens when you combine Tesla fast with China fast. It happened real quick. Lathrop happened in 12 months. That's also very good. But this is a one-floor factory, not a one that employs cubic space the way we see in Texas or Berlin. So yeah, it is done. It is amazing, and it is going to get cranking any second. And it is right next to, within a few kilometers of the brand new CATL factory where the cells are presumably being made. So this is ideal.
Do you see them starting up, Brian, and then shutting down for Lunar New Year, or do you see it? They might just have to wait until after the Lunar New Year.
I think they would absolutely start up and shut down for Lunar New Year. Yeah. Well, when is it? Oh, no, it's only in a couple.
It's at the end of the month.
Weeks.
It's the
Yeah.
29th.
Boy, I don't see Tesla waiting for anything.
Yeah. Especially on this, especially if it's their new baby. All right. Well, that brings us to the top of the hour. If you've been hanging out this week, Joe's been helping us publish some amazing content through our channels on CES. So that's why he's CES Prez. So thank you for being the media this week for us at CES. But yeah, please give all of these amazing creators, knowledge experts a follow, whether it's the Prez, Brian, FutureAza, Hans. I've tagged their channels on YouTube, and then also too on X. Their handles are there as well. So please give them a follow. We got you covered, and we will see you all next week. And go buy a Tesla Model Y if you can. That is not financial advice, but yeah, we'll see you guys next week. Cool.